What is up, everybody? Raymond Summerlin here. This is the Sharp Angles podcast, the fantasy football preview edition of the Sharp Angles podcast. And that means I am joined by my good friend, Mr. I'm going to say your name correctly this week. I messed it up last week. So for the 501st time, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it correctly. Rich Hribar. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, we're doing good. Listen, I've been called way worse. You didn't botch it too bad last week. I've heard it all.
Yeah, I don't know why I was just adding consonants to the end of your name. I don't know why I was doing that. I know
Yeah,
you're
we don't do the
excited this
phone
week.
call thing anymore. Like remember growing up when landlines were such a thing still. When you'd get like the calls and hello, Mr. Ryabar. Are you here? Like we don't get those don't exist anymore. But I've heard it all though.
I like the new this is probably a scam feature on all the phones.
Oh
Those
yeah.
I've been very fond of that. It hasn't stopped all of the scammers from continuing to call my phone. Like I don't know, their success rate has to be plummeting at this point. So that might be interesting. Is that going to be the big change in the industry? Part of the next recession will be that there'll just be scammers on the street trying to Three Card Monty's going to make a return. Like where are all these people going to go to try to make their money now?
I mean, apparently they keep finding people through like the emails and the phones. They get enough people to reply. I think for that. That's why they keep doing it.
Yeah, no, it's smart. How about you? I bet you're feeling good this week. We had three teams on by this week, leaving you with just like, what did you do with your time? Like, did you see the sun? Like, did
I
you
got to
watch
go
the
to
eclipse? Like, what did you do?
yeah. I actually yesterday when I got done with the games, 'cause we had three fewer. I got to go to the gym. It was the first time on a Wednesday I worked out
To the
all season.
gym? Goodness, to the gym. Look at you, healthy boy. Like when I get my work done fast, I go to like a buffet. So we're living slightly different lives, slightly
Well,
different
I,
approaches.
I've
Or
I've
I
I've noticed, and I'm not like super like health dude or anything, but I've noticed like this season since the season started, like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday when I'm in worksheet mode, like I physically feel off because I got in better shape in my life. That like now that like I pulled that back and I don't do stuff, I'm at the computer more, I'm writing more, and I'm not eating quite as good as I was. Like I actually feel like I feel it now in my body when I'm not as healthy.
Yeah, I took the dog for a walk yesterday, and I got to the end of the walk. I was like, "Oh, this is." And I looked down at her. I go, "Looks like we're going to be taking some more walks, Abby. We need to get out and about more." But anyway, we're here not to talk about our quickly diminishing health and our short road to death. We're here to talk about a terrible week of football. What I will say, we mentioned last week how it wasn't going to be, last week we didn't have great matchups, but because of kind of the way that it was, we thought we'd see some upsets, and we did end up seeing some upsets. Predicting those is
Hmm.
hard, but we did end up seeing them. This week, most of the games are bad, but at least we have some headliners, right? We're hoping that Eagles Dolphins is going to be good. We're hoping that Chiefs and Chargers are going to be good. So I'm much more interested going into this week than I think I was going into last week. However, there's just kind of this pall across the entire NFL season. We talked about it after week one. You mentioned it in everything you were writing for the fantasy football draft kit before the season, that offenses are in a rut right now, and offense is down. And we kind of got a bounce back from week one a little bit, but since then it's just been bad. And actually, Warren Sharp wrote over at sharpfootballanalysis.com an article about kind of just laying out all of the issues that are going on with offenses. And I think one of the first things I want to talk about today as we move into our real or fake segment with the best graphic in the business. If you're not watching this on YouTube, by the way, go to YouTube, search Warren Sharp. You'll find our channel. Subscribe. We do this live every Thursday, 11:30 Eastern. But these offensive struggles that we've had through the first 6 weeks, and we can talk about all of the statistics that Warren has over there in his article on Sharp Football Analysis, which again, go read that. But I guess the question is, do you see this as a continuation of what we've seen and something that's going to continue? Are you hopeful that this is going to get better? How do you kind of see the offensive landscape, the bad offensive landscape that we've had through 6 weeks as we move forward?
Yeah, it's an extension of what a lot of the work I did the last couple of years. I've been putting this article in the book and then on the website. Just talking about the current NFL trends, right, and what we're seeing, and it continues a trend in that direction. Like we're seeing more zone coverage, less man coverage, less aggressive defensive play. Uh, then you've got like, the penalty stuff Warren talks about. We've got quarterback play is an issue across the NFL. We've got a number of backup quarterbacks playing this week too. Hopefully tonight we don't have one, but we might have one tonight, in Jacksonville. Offensive line play is bad. There's a lot going on. The only like thing that like I still can't get with, because I got pushed back when I tweeted some stats about this earlier in the week, and people say like high scoring games doesn't equal quality football. And I agree with that. Like I'm for good defense if we're getting good defense, but I don't believe we're in this like defensive meta where we're seeing just like this revival of great like defensive play. I think it is still very steered much by bad offense as opposed to good defense. And that's where it's a problem for the NFL. We're seeing just a very widespread brash of just very bad offensive football play as opposed to good defense. If we were just getting great defense, that's one thing, but I don't really believe that's the case.
Yeah, I could see that maybe this. I think what kind of is happening here is that the way that defense was played in more of like kind of the cover 3 era maybe made it a little bit easier for quarterbacks, and maybe quarterbacks that don't process as quickly were able to hide a little bit. And now, because of how good NFL defenses are, just from a speed perspective, the things they're trying to do to beat these new zone coverages and the middle of the field open and all of this, it doesn't work because they're trying to do similar things that happen in college, except your wide receiver isn't 10 times better than the defensive back, and so they're just getting tackled. And so a lot of what we're seeing is these underneath throws that just don't go anywhere. And I do wonder if they try to open up the offense, or they would open up the offense if we had better quarterback play, because you do still see teams succeeding. The Dolphins are still able to do this, and they're able to do this because of the speed that they have, and because Tua is very good at running their offense. And I wonder if what is happening now is that a lot of the quarterback cracks. Because I mean, if you think about it, to 3 or 4 years ago, I think the league was in a really good place for quarterbacks, and some of those players have retired, and maybe we're just kind of in a fallow period. This next quarterback class that's coming into the league, it's pretty highly regarded. I know that's kind of a thing in draft circles. Just look at next year's draft class. But this one
Yeah.
actually appears to be
Did you
this
play
one actually
Dynasty?
appears to be good. Exactly. If you played Dynasty, remember how everybody was hoarding 2023
Yeah.
first round draft picks, and that worked out. That worked out great for
The
all of us.
biggest difference too,
But
I think, this year compared to last, is when the defensive meta kind of flipped and was like, hey, yeah, we're gonna leave the middle field open. We're gonna invite you to run. Is that teams actually ran the ball effectively last year, and that really hasn't happened this year. Which again, I think signals back to like the state of where offensive line play is right now.
yeah, absolutely. And then the other part of it is, I just think against an NFL defense, not even a good NFL defense, it's hard to dink and duck consistently and execute consistently down the field. It's not going to work. We see big plays considerably down this year. Again, just 5.6% of offensive plays are 20 or more yards, which is down big. I mentioned this actually with the Cowboys offense last week, and the Cowboys offense got one big play from Tony Pollard kind of on accident, and it flipped the game. So these teams that are able to create big plays, the Miami Dolphins, for instance, the San Francisco 49ers, these teams are still going to be able to be fine because they're able to create these big plays that actually what lead to scoring. And so, yeah, I think it's kind of a confluence of things. And I do think
Mhm.
quarterback play and a lack of, like, how many people there are there on earth right now who can be an effective NFL quarterback? The number is definitely less than 32, and I don't know if it's more than 15. And that's a massive problem in kind of what we're looking at.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a lot of people have been trying to like just put like a blanket answer on like what's going on, and like you said, I definitely believe also it's just a confluence of things. Like a lot of things go into this, but thank God for Mike McDaniel.
Thank God for the Shanahan coaching tree. That is that's all we have now, as we look at this. I do want to kind of point to one thing Warren had in this article, and again, I'd recommend go read this. Very good. He mentioned, and this kind of I hadn't like really thought about that this is what I was noticing, but as soon as he said it, I went, oh yeah, this is what I've been noticing. Offenses on the first drive on the scripted plays, and this has always kind of been true, but offenses on the scripted plays have been much better than they've been throughout the rest of the game, especially in the second half. And I think one of the reasons we're seeing the blowouts that we're seeing is that teams' defenses are able to adjust to what offenses are doing, and offenses, for whatever reason, haven't been able to adjust, especially offenses that are trailing. Trailing teams in the second half, just 45.5% of their drives reach the red zone or score, which is the lowest total since the lowest percentage since 2000. So that is a very large change and a very big deviation. And I do wonder if this is just the offense is figuring it out. I wonder if at some point they will, and then we kind of see this start to turn around later in the season. But yeah, it's so far it hasn't been a promising start to the fantasy season. And that's what people could say, well, we like good defense. I'm happy to watch good defense. If the early 2000s 2010 Seahawks are walking through the door, I love to watch that. That was fun, but I like you said, I don't think that's what this is, and
Yeah, we're
this is
not
not
seeing
fun to
it.
watch.
Yeah, we're not seeing. I mean, how many truly like elite defenses like there we believe like there are? If we're to like actually like segregate teams that we believe have like a really good front end defense, like what's the list stop at? Like 3 teams, 4 teams?
Yeah, I mean, it's Browns, Cowboys. Do we even think the 49ers are?
Yeah, I would still like I would put them in that place. But then is there another one?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it'd be different. Like I don't see how you can make the argument for like this league wide spread of great defenses when a team like the Giants has gone 35 straight drives without a touchdown, or we have this streak where the Patriots went 30 straight drives without even getting to the red zone, right? Like there's offensive ineptitude that is going on.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, can we talk about the Giants? We're not going to talk about the Giants. We don't have them on the rundown here, but if you watched your team pay a lot of money to Daniel Jones, which they kind of had to do, and that could be part of it, by the way. Joe Gibbs, who works with us, brought this up on a call yesterday. Is that part of what we might be seeing is that this inflated? No, I guess it was actually Curtis Hirsch, I think, brought this up. This inflated prices that are being paid for these mid-tier quarterbacks are preventing teams from having the talent they need around them to actually work. And so the Giants feel compelled to pay Daniel Jones because Daniel Jones is at least better than whatever they're going to find on the street, or at least they thought, which means they have a terrible receiver core, which means they have a terrible offensive line because they can't draft offensive linemen for some reason. And they have invested in the offensive line, to be fair, but they can't make it work. And then you pay Daniel Jones all this money, you bring in Tyrod Taylor, and suddenly the offense looks fine. Like that, that's a tough outcome if you're a Giants fan, man. That's rough to watch. So I'm not sorry, Giants fans. I didn't mean to bring that up, but it's just something I've been thinking about. It's not good. I want Tyrod Taylor to start this week, right? Like, don't you
Yeah.
want Tyrod Taylor to start this week?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna talk about Jalen Hyatt later in the show.
Does it change if Daniel Jones starts?
Yes.
It's not. That's not good. That's tough scene. Anyway,
Tyrod Taylor had as many completions on throws 20 yards or further downfield last week that Daniel Jones had in the season coming in.
oh, that is less than ideal. We'll call that less than
I mean,
ideal.
it stinks because Giants fans probably had a fun time last year, right? My son, we talk about this. My son is a Giants fan. My 18-year-old son, he loves the Giants. He grew up. He loved Victor Cruz was his favorite player. He's stuck with them since Victor Cruz left the team, and he had a blast on Sundays last year. They won all these close games. They got to the playoffs. They won a playoff game. That was the worst thing that could have happened for that franchise, organizationally. It really was.
It's bad.
It really was. You think about that. Like making the playoffs was objectively bad. It like made this team worse for the long run, the big picture.
Yeah, because they thought they were closer than they were, which is why you have to kind of be honest with yourself.
Because they had to give Daniel Jones that contract. They put themselves in a position by making the playoffs to not have a high draft pick. It also forced your ties because you think you're closer. You have to bring Saquon Barkley back. Like, all these different dominoes are pushed over by that. And it probably is going to force them to reset a few things.
Yeah. And by the way, kind of on that point, we're just tangenting now. Yeah. The Vikings didn't do that this offseason, really, in my mind, which I thought was interesting. They did draft Jordan Addison, but at that point, he was probably value in the first round. Yeah. So they got rid of.
To be fair, their guy's 35 years old. Like, that's the other the hanging element too, is that there's still like where Daniel Jones's career trajectory wise, there was like a carrot to say like, all right, well, he's still in his mid-20s, something can happen. Where Kirk Cousins is literally, it's like, how many years does he even have?
Next year he will not be with the Vikings. I feel. No. Can we bet on that? Like if we could bet on that, I'd like to. Apparently, he will be with them for the rest of the year. So have fun with that.
In the NFL,
If it
I see all these, faux trades being thrown out there. Like nothing cool happens in the NFL at the trade deadline. Like Mecole Hardman gets traded. That's what happens.
You could just stop. Nothing cool happens in the NFL. End of sentence. That's it.
But it's not like the NBA or like Major League Baseball where like all these stars get traded. Like that very rarely has happened in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Quarterbacks especially. So yeah, I think that's fair. All right. There's a lot more about in that article that Warren wrote. It was a ton of words written about this topic. Incredible deep dive. Go to Sharp Football Analysis. Check that out. Also go to Sharp Football Analysis and check out our all access package. With our all access package, you get access to Warren Sharp's betting recommendations. You get access to all of our fantasy content, including Rich Hribar's worksheets, the preview of every single game, every single week, his rankings, all of that's there. He does a live chat on Sunday mornings at 11:45 Eastern. So you can go and ask him questions. There's a ton of stuff included in that all access package. And you can use the code ANGLES and get 25% off. So go and check out the all access package. All right. Moving on here to Bijan Robinson and kind of what we've seen over the last couple weeks. We came out of London thinking, all right, here's Bijan Robinson time. We're going to get him, the full time running back. And since then, that simply just hasn't been the case.
No, and Arthur Smith kind of came out and talked about, keeping his workload in check. And that's, fine relative to we thought this team was going to run the ball a ton too, but they've been in such bad game scripts that they haven't really. Now they still run the ball more than expected based on game script, but they are dropping back the pass 39 times per game now because they're bad. Only the Giants and Jets have led for a fewer rate of snaps in games than the Falcons. So that's actually helped Bijan a little bit in the receiving side because he still is getting catches, but if we're forced to live on any reduction of touches, then we're forced to live on efficiency, and we haven't had the efficiency rushing the past 2 weeks from him, and that's very tough. He's a guy like I want to move down in rankings, and this is why I do the worksheet before rankings, because I want to have like clarity on like player usage and like clear expectations before putting guys in a linear list, because he's a guy that shouldn't be ranked where he is, but by the default of the landscape is. Like we have to treat him as like this upside RB1, right? When he really is more of like an upside RB2 from like his usage stance. So yeah, that's kind of where we are.
Some of that upside doesn't exist because of his usage around the goal line.
Right.
And because he's not getting those high value touches. He is getting the targets, and that's nice. And he caught his receiving touchdown this year, which is nice. But he's not getting those high value carries around the goal line. Those are going to Tyler Algier. And so
he's also bad on those carries and was bad as a rookie, which is very interesting. Like you'd think teams like, because we have access to this stuff as fantasy analysts. So I assume someone in Atlanta is looking at this stuff too.
Well, that was the thing too. Yeah, it's always so odd. This was kind of the case with Derrick Henry early in his career. Do you remember this? How he was not very good at short yardage situations, at least the way that they were using him in short yardage. But that was the only place they were using him when he was kind of playing second fiddle in Tennessee. It's DeMarco Murray. And so to DeMarco Murray, still my only freezing cold retweet. They've only ever retweeted me once. It was because I thought DeMarco Murray was washed, and then he wasn't. So thank you, DeMarco Murray. I really appreciate that. But but yeah, so like you could look at it and say, oh, he hasn't been very good in short yardage, but they still keep giving him. And so I guess the question is that going to continue? It seems like it's going to. Are they going to continue to limit Bijan's workload? You mentioned it, Arthur Smith. I have the quote here. I think the quote is important to hear because it's pretty clear what he's saying. Mm-hmm. Arthur Smith says, I think you have to be careful. I think it's not just physical. It's the mental things that can get some of them guys. You want to do everything, and he's a unique player, and that's part of the things, too, you look at operationally. If you're putting too much on them, that's where Cordero Patterson coming back, you hope that's a give and take. So not only are we worried about Tyler Algier here, we're now worried about Cordero Patterson coming back, which is a big concern for his target share, which is the thing that you are banking on. I mean, his target share has already gone down. It was like 20% early in the season. It's down to 12.2% over the last 2 games. Like all of these, it's just the trends are not great here for Robinson, and I'm worried that they're not going to turn around based on the signals we're getting from the team.
Yeah, it's just a running back landscape. The running back landscape is so rough right now, and especially, if we remove Christian McCaffrey, if he misses any part of time either, it's just been really rough out there, man.
It's not good. Kyron Williams too. Kyron Williams is taking up some bench slots
Right,
in
like a
some of my
gem. Like,
leagues.
Kyron's been arguably one of the best, late round picks, bigger early season waiver wire guys, just because he's been this running back you can count on for touches and touchdown equity. And now he's gone. And who knows what's going to happen there this weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, I have
It
a
is
pretty good
funny.
idea what's going to happen there this weekend, but it's not going to be great.
That four different running backs are going to get carries, and it's going to be like Arizona last week where nothing good happens. Yeah, we've lost James
Yeah.
Conner too. James Conner was not replaced by another running back. James Conner was replaced by 3 running backs, including one off the street that for some reason got more touches than Amari DiMercado, and I am not angry about that. Don't put in the papers that I'm angry about that. But yeah, it was a. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. And I think it's not going the right way for Bijan. Let's get positive though. It's going the right way here for Michael Mayer, our rookie tight end with the Raiders. His dropback rate was up to 66.7% last week. He has 9 targets over the last 2 games after 2 total through 4 weeks. Is this real? Are we going to finally get a nice addition to the kind of streaming TE1 landscape? Please tell me it's real.
That part's not, but they're going to play him. Yeah, he's a second round pick. He's going to get more snaps. I mean, his game came in a game where Devontae Adams had his second lowest target share as a Raider, right? Like Devontae Adams is going to get more targets going forward, and they're going to prioritize. Like at best, Michael Mayer is still the 3rd best target in a Jimmy Garoppolo led offense. So yeah, we'll have some weeks where you can run into some upside. You hit, but he's going to be on this big log jam of guys that are just out there, man. Did you get a touchdown from this guy? Did you get a big play? That's what it is. I mean, he's going to be a really popular DFS play as priced this week, and he's very fragile. I mean, because a lot of times when you have these breakouts or something happens, we kind of say, well, what happened else in the game? And it'd be different if Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers had these good games and Michael Mayer also had a good game. But Devontae Adams isn't going to go a game, like many games, where he has 5 targets, right? And 4 targets. That's just not going to happen. So,
He's already gone 2 in a row with
Sure.
lower opportunity. And so this is 2 in a row from Devontae Adams with lower opportunity. And he is mad about it. It made some noise about it. And I think we've seen AJ Brown's recent explosion would tell you a little bit about the squeaky wheel theory and whether or not that has some validity. And it has appeared to for AJ Brown, and I think it's going to for Devontae Adams this week as well. And so, yeah, if Adams is there, Jacoby Myers is a target earner. He is proving it again. And so that doesn't leave Josh Jacobs is obviously going to be involved in the passing game as well, as long as they allow him to continue running into brick walls. We'll see how long that is. I don't know. Maybe try out Zamir White, see what could happen. I don't know. Just throwing that out there for the Raiders.
But yeah,
And
listen,
so,
tight ends,
yeah,
sure, man. I'm not gonna yuck anyone's yum, taking a shot at a young tight end. Look at this landscape, man. Like Taysom, I'm excited about Taysom Hill's usage tonight. Let's do it, man. Let's fire Taysom Hill up, baby.
Just spent some fab on Taysom Hill today, or this week. So yeah, we're in on Taysom Hill. I do want to talk about
Johnny Smith
about,
is back.
the Raiders.
Hey man, do what you got to do at tight end.
I'm thinking about the Raiders playing Austin Hooper over their talented young tight end for 4 weeks. I'm just like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? It just NFL teams are weird, man.
Yeah, we saw
They're
it shift a
weird.
little bit out of the bye with JSN, but JSN wasn't playing at the expense of basically playing 12 personnel with Kobe Parkinson. Okay.
Yeah, it's been wild. Oh, we did see that with the Chargers, by the way. We were hoping that Quentin Johnson was going to get more snaps, and then they just ran out Donald Parham a lot. So yeah. So we'll see. Those first round picks, I guess they don't
I do wonder too, and I didn't think about that until after hindsight, but I wonder if the Cowboys matchup had a lot to do with that too. They just didn't feel like they were going to be able to pass protect against the Cowboys.
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe that influenced it. But I mean, the Chiefs have been a team that can get after the passer too. So we'll see it. Either way, the bottom line is it still is tried and true. Josh Palmer is not going away.
Yep, that is the case. Josh Palmer, injured or not, added to the injury report on Sunday or not, Josh Palmer is inevitable. He will find a way. he will snap his fingers with that glove behind your head, and we will see Josh Palmer in fantasy lineups from now until the end of time. And so that's exciting for everybody. All right, let's move on. Talk about some good games. We do have some good games this week. The first one, probably the best one, is the Eagles hosting the Dolphins on Sunday Night Football. And I first of all, just kind of talk back to the trend that we were talking about. And this is something that was interesting to me when I looked at it this week. The Eagles are 27th in the rate of plays to go for 10 or more yards. They were third last year at 22.5%, at 16.1%. Again, another example of just teams are not getting those chunk gains. And yeah, it's interesting to watch. The Eagles also have offensive line concerns this week. It seems like Lane Johnson, like the vibes you're getting is that Lane Johnson is going to try to play, but he did not practice on Wednesday. That's something we have to watch. You had a great stat in the worksheet preview for this game about Hurts being pressured on 45.2% of his dropbacks after Johnson left against the Jets. So that offensive line, if Johnson is out and kind of the other issues they already have on this offensive line, that's going to be a big concern against this Dolphins defense, right?
Yeah, and this is how regression works, right? Like it's a surplus of different things. And the Eagles just have had just terrible injury luck, like to start this season. Like just a number of guys that hurt, like especially on the defensive side of the ball. But already Cam Jurgens has been out. He's on short-term IR. So like you're talking about if Lane Johnson doesn't play, or even if it's a half-mass Lane Johnson, like your right side of the line is compromised from where it started the season at. They're not running the ball. Like that's where a lot of their explosives aren't coming this year. Like the explosive runs in the run game haven't really been there for this team. The Vikings are really like the only week that they created a lot of explosives in the run game. So that hasn't been as effective as it was last year. Devontae Smith's in like a little bit of a funk. They haven't really gotten Dallas Goedert to do much outside of one game. So I mean, this offense is fine. But despite all their struggles, like the Eagles have still been like a pretty effective offense overall. I mean, they're second in the NFL in yards per drive. They punt at the second lowest rate. Like they've still found a way to like kind of work through a lot of their issues, at least more than other teams that are struggling like are able to do. So like, and Hurts gives them a lot of outs in that capacity because of just how he can extend plays. Obviously, the tush push and the brotherly shove and all that stuff, whatever you want to call it. But that only works for them. Everyone has an issue with that play, but it doesn't work for anyone besides the Eagles.
As it turns out, if your quarterback can squat like 9 million pounds, that helps when you're running that play.
Yeah.
So I don't know, get in the gym, Derek Carr, and then we'll see if it works. I don't know. I picked on Derek. I'm
But
sorry,
I mean,
Derek. Don't block me on Twitter again.
This game has objectively like the layout we want. Like when you're talking like the offenses, like both defenses have injuries. Like this is kind of what we want to have a carnival ride. Like please be there Sunday Night Football. Like get there for us.
Yeah, and this is the game that I guess I'm going to look at and say, is this real? Are we actually the next one we're going to talk about too, Chargers Chiefs, which has always gone over, not over the total, has always been over 50 points. We look at these two games and these two games disappoint, then it's time to really start thinking about, all right, where are we? And the other
because
part of it is you mentioned the Eagles.
The Dolphins have played two good, like competent offenses, and they've gotten flooded both those games. Like
Absolutely, and that's kind of the point here. Just one of the points I wanted to bring up is that you mentioned the Eagles' run game. This Miami Dolphins run defense has been all over the place. We saw the Chargers absolutely gash them. Last week wasn't so bad, but they couldn't tackle Chuba Hubbard. They were still getting contact to him near the line of scrimmage. Their yards before contact numbers weren't bad. The yards after contact numbers against him were bad. He was able to run through tackles. You mentioned that this defense is injured. They have Xavier Howard, questionable. Jalen Ramsey is designated to return. I don't know if it's going to happen this week.
no.
These defenses, the injuries, all of the injuries the Eagles have in their secondary with Darius Slay and Reed Blankenship and all those issues that they have. Yeah, this is set up for both of these offenses to go up and down the field and us to have a shootout. And my kind of one concern about it, well, I have two concerns. One, it's 2023. We'll see kind of what happens. Maybe they're just going to call 1,000 ineligible man downfield penalties, and we never actually even get to see the game. My other concern is I wonder if the Eagles look at this matchup and kind of remember what they did to the Vikings. And I wonder if they see this, especially with the injuries they have on defense, as an opportunity to kind of just run down their throats like they did against the Vikings. And I wonder if we get maybe a little bit slower paced game than we want. Their time of possession per play against Minnesota was 31.6. It was under 30 for almost the rest of the season. So I am interested in kind of their decisions, especially Devontae Smith hurt now too with the hamstring. I don't know about him. I'm interested in how the Eagles kind of attack this game.
Yeah, it's gonna be, especially if Xavier Howard's out too. It's gonna be interesting how Fangio kind of calls this game. He hasn't been playing as much like coverage as he has in years past. They played a little bit more man coverage, but obviously, if you remove Xavier Howard, that you might alleviate how much they're actually playing that type of coverage. Do you want to even play man coverage against AJ Brown? Like all those things, like elements go into
You
play,
do not
and
want
then
to do. You do not want to play
you
man
do not
coverage
want
against
to,
AJ.
and
Can
and then
confirm.
and then the kind of the true reveal will probably be this week on the Eagles' run defense, which has been excellent so far to start the season. They have faced a number of teams that haven't really run the football in their other games as well, though. So is this going to be a spot where we look at like the strength on strength? Because the Miami scheme we know probably is good enough to, even if you face a good opponent, you shade them a little bit, but like they're good enough scheme wise. It's like when the 49ers play a good run defense, right? You're like, well, they're gonna get something. That's what we usually have with this Dolphins defense. So we also kind of get some true reveal on this Eagles run defense, which has been really good, but how much that has been opponent driven for them.
Yeah, and I do wonder though if the Philly run defense is able to stand up and at least slow them down. And you mentioned it with the 49ers, but the 49ers were slowed down by the Cowboys. Their running game was slowed down by the Browns. And so I wonder if the Eagles run defense is kind of on that level and able to slow them down, are we going to get, more passing volume, especially if this is back and forth? And you mentioned this in your worksheet right after this game, is that what we've seen from Jalen Waddle recently from a target share perspective, he scored his 2 touchdowns. Touchdowns are fluky. It is what it is. But from a target share perspective, we're pretty excited about kind of what we're seeing from Jalen Waddle. It's just that the big plays haven't been there. And if he's going to continue to get this target share and maybe they pass a little bit more than they normally do this week, we could have a nice breakout game here for Jalen Waddle. In fact, I'm going to be targeting him in the captain spot in showdown lineups because this could be kind of one of those, if this usage continues, one of these kind of breakout situations for Waddle. And we know that his ceiling, when it happens, is immense.
Yeah, we just haven't had the big splash plays. He's a guy I played in DFS tournaments, and like you're happy you got the touchdown, but like you didn't run into the huge game either game because the yard wasn't there. But if he's a guy that's going to flirt like with a target share around 30%, and it's been 30% and 36% the past 2 weeks, like eventually, like on those types of targets, something's going to come. And it is a thin target tree, anyways. So we're looking to cook here with Jalen Waddle, I think.
No, I think so as well. The other wide receiver two in this game is kind of going the other way, and that's Devontae Smith. Missed practice on Wednesday. I couldn't get a good read from any reporters on what, if we should be worried about this injury. It's probably not a great sign that they added Julio Jones, but they might have done that anyway. And so I'm trying not to read too much into that. By the way, do you have any thoughts on the Julio Jones addition? Do you care
Good
at
for
all? I
good for
kind of don't,
Julio.
right?
Just good for
Yeah,
Julio.
exactly. I hope he wins a Super Bowl. That's what I'll say about it. I don't even root for the Eagles, but I will root for Julio. So Devontae Smith, he's had 50 total receiving yards over the last 2 weeks, despite 16 targets. He struggled with drops. He had one really bad drop last week. This is probably going to be a good game environment. We're projecting a good game environment. The secondary, as we've mentioned with Miami, is struggling. So I guess if he's healthy, we're just going to go back to the well here with Devonta Smith. But do you have any concerns?
Not in anything outside of normal, right? Like I think the biggest thing is just with these guys, we haven't seen them like coexist like they did to end last season. Like it didn't matter if one guy had a big game last year or not. Devontae Smith and AJ Brown were good together in unison. You go back to Super Bowl, like the last 8 weeks last season, they were constantly wide receiver two or better together. This year, it's been kind of one or the other, right? Like you talked about AJ Brown's tantrum in the week. Devontae Smith did good in week 2, and Devontae Smith did solid in week 1. Week 1 was like the best, like the outlook that kind of both of them had in terms of like targets and stuff. Last week's could have been good. Devontae Smith self-sabotaged himself a little bit last week. I mean, he had 11 targets, but he's just in that nebulous bucket of guys we talk about, right? Like the Waddles, the T. Higgins. I include Chris Olave in there, even though he should be better. The Amari Coopers of the world, right? Like the target share exists for these guys, but they also come with some volatility. The upside exists. We know they're good players. But they're just in kind of like that bucket of kind of like you have to keep playing them. They belong in that like tier of guys, but there's a reason why they aren't quite like the elite part of the position.
Let me tell you how I got to this tangent because I feel I need to explain how I got here. I was thinking about that group of guys. I was thinking about DJ Moore and kind of what we're doing with DJ
Get
Moore.
DJ Moore.
I wanted to ask you about it, but then I remembered that I still don't know how to pronounce the last name of the Bears quarterback now. Tyson, is it? Do you know what it is? Is it?
It's Bagent,
Baggett?
right? Like Tyson
Bagent.
Bagent, like Bagent, like Agent of Chaos. That's why they call him Bagent of Chaos. Like
very good. Bagent. So Tyson Bagent. So DJ Moore is definitely in that group, or at least he was with Justin Fields. I mean, how are you? Just kind of this is an aside. How are you feeling about him here with Bagent? Do you have any thoughts on kind of what you're going to do with him?
I mean, it could be better.
Yeah.
I mean, Justin Fields is a volatile. He's an erratic passer and he's mobile, right? And he runs. Like Bagent's a drop. He actually can run a little bit. He's got a little bit of athleticism, but like they're gonna have more of a drop back pass game. So, and they tried to do that with Fields, right? And it didn't work for Fields. Fields complained about it. So
yeah,
maybe there's just an opportunity. He targeted the hell out of DJ Moore when he came in the game. Like
DJ Moore was on his way to a really bad game, and then Bagent came in, and it turned into a pretty okay game. Like it was 4 for 51 or something like that.
He ran 15 pass routes with Bagent in the game, and Bagent targeted him 6 times on 15 pass routes.
Yeah. No, he was peppering him, and maybe with a week of practice, we'll see that's
Nate Hobbs might not play in that game, so like something to, like I mean, you have DJ Moore, you're putting him in the lineup, right? Like you just hope, especially on a week with 6 teams on bye, at his target share, and you're just letting Jesus take the wheel with the targets, man. Like that, those are the guys that we have, the Olaves, Devontae. So like you're saying yes. Here are the targets. Here's the talent. Do something with them.
I have 2 questions for you on Bagent, and this might be for producer Heather as well, because she seems to know about Bagent as well. Looking at the chat we have in the background. One, is it true that his dad is like an arm wrestling champion?
Yes,
and
that's true.
And 2, do you love the movie Over the Top starring Sylvester Stallone?
Yes,
the amount that I do.
2 facts. 100% yes on both accounts.
Can you just turn your hat around real quick to recreate? That's how Sylvester Stallone got into the zone when he was trying to win that semi truck.
Everyone knows when you want to get serious, like we're gonna have a conversation, you gotta go Griffey. You gotta Griffey it.
That's how you get.
You have the trucker hat though. The fitted isn't as good as the look. Right. It's more the Griffey look. You gotta have the trucker hat to pull it off.
Yeah, the trucker hat. My wife still wants me, back in the early aughts, back in my day, kids. I remember trucker hats were really popular, and I had long hair that would like flip up out of the end. And my wife she's still trying to get me to grow it out again to get the old Farrah Fawcett flip. Rest in peace.
Nice.
And so so maybe we'll get there. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about a different game. Let's go to the Chargers and the Chiefs. An interesting matchup in this game, and you wrote about this in your worksheet preview, is Travis Kelce versus Derwin James. And this has been a great matchup since Derwin James entered the league. He had a bunch of great stats about it. But it seemed Kelce got the best of him last time. Kind of how are you? We're starting Travis Kelce, but if you're worried about DFS, kind of what are you thinking about here?
Yeah, it's just something to throw in there. And I've since we got access to True Media a couple of years ago, it was like one of the first things I uncovered. Like they were playing that week, and I was like, I want to look at that. And like the splits were pretty jarring. And like you said, Kelce finally got one over. What makes a good rivalry though, it is back and forth, right? Like you do have the give and take. Like one guy can win on a given play. Where kind of the Marshawn Lattimore, Mike Evans thing has been kind of one-sided. Like Marshawn Lattimore's kind of got the best of him, and that's why Mike Evans gets ejected from games because he's pissed off that he's getting nuked. But yeah, since for people that know these stats, I'll throw them out there. Since the Chargers drafted Derwin James, Travis Kelce has run 206 pass routes with Derwin James on the field because Derwin obviously had some snake bugaboos early in his career getting on the field. On those 206 pass routes, Travis Kelce has averaged 1.58 yards per route run, 12 yards per catch, and he's caught 57.4% of his targets. He has run 124 routes with Derwin James off the field. He has caught 73.7% of those targets, 14.6 yards per catch, 3.3 yards per route run. Now, the last time these teams played, Kelce got him. He actually hadn't scored a touchdown in a game Derwin James was active in against the Chargers until last time these teams played, and not only did he score one, he scored 3 of them. So, and then no one's sitting. yeah, make up for lost time. But yeah, no one's sitting Travis Kelce. I just think it's fun because, we don't have a lot of like these, like we used to get these all the time, like in the old school days, like Dion versus Jerry Rice, or, it have Ty Law and Marvin Harrison, right? Like we don't really have a lot of these individual matchups that are like a thing anymore. But like Derwin James and Travis Kelce is low key. There's no bad blood here, but like it's like a low key, like a fun cat and mouse game with these guys.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch. And if Derwin James is going to be able to at least hinder, nobody's shutting down Travis Kelce. But
Right.
if he's able to hinder Travis Kelce, that's a massive problem for the Kansas City passing game as it is constructed in the year 2023, because Kelce is the passing game, and they haven't been able to, develop any other pass catchers out of that, or they don't use the ones that are actually good. Cough for she Rice cough. And so that could be an issue moving here. This game has traditionally been a shootout. It has traditionally been very high scoring. You put it in the worksheet, 51 points or more in 5 straight meetings. This is currently the second highest total on the board at 48. It's
come down
2023. That's why 48 is the second highest total. What a time to be alive. It has been bet down from a 52 open. The Chiefs defense has been, and we keep talking about it, the Chiefs defense is good. It's been good. They're only allowing 5.8 yards per pass attempt. Justin Herbert has struggled since Mike Williams went down. The passing game hasn't been able to really get on track. We saw that again on Sunday night a little bit, especially thinking about the context of 2023. I'm getting under vibes from this game. And normally in DFS, if I'm getting under vibes from a game, I'm going to fade it. But I just have no idea what other game that I would heavy stack, so I don't know what to do. But I am getting some under vibes here. How about you?
Well, this game also, from a DFS perspective, is hard to stack because the core pieces you would want, you can't put together because they're just too expensive. I do a show at Joe Holken. We tried to build a few lineups around this game, and it's just extremely hard. Obviously, the Chiefs or DFS are always hard to stack because of what you said. Like, you want to do Mahomes plus Kelce, but they're always the highest price players at each position, and you're paying up for the highest price player at 2 onesie positions, which is really hard to do in DFS anyways, even if it's not 2 guys on the same team. And then you talk about like the ancillary pieces. You just don't know what anyone's going to do outside of Isaiah Pacheco. Like, right? Like, Mahomes is a guy that can have 3 passing touchdowns, and every guy that catches a passing touchdown still doesn't get there from a value perspective for DFS because they don't come with any yards or any catches. Like Blake Bell could catch a touchdown, or MVS could have a touchdown and not really any catches or yards, or who knows, maybe Justin Ross catches a touchdown this week, or Tony last week catches the touchdown, but he's not really playable.
Doesn't matter.
And then Keenan Allen's expensive, Austin Eckler's expensive. So like really outside of Isaiah Pacheco and Josh Palmer, everyone else is kind of a guessing game that like doesn't come attached to like a huge salary. So it is hard to game stack this game as well from just a salary restriction perspective.
Yeah, and like if you then do it and you end up with Palmer and Pacheco, then you end up with a lineup that looks very similar to a lot of other lineups, because that's the way that you're going to be able to do it. So if you're entering a big tournament and not just, a single entry, small field, 300 people or whatever, then you're running into the risk of just having a bunch of duplicates. So even if you hit, it doesn't matter. And so it's a tough game with that. Like you said, if we had some tertiary pieces that we felt great about, if they committed to playing Rashee Rice more,
he's the guy people will play.
Exactly. But you're right. He's just going to be the guy people will play. So do you play Tony and just hope they use him more? I mean, we have a long history now that they're not going to do that. So and the thing with Pacheco is the Chargers' run defense hasn't even been bad like it was last year.
No.
And so you're not even really getting excited about that. And so, like for season-long fantasy, this is easy. You're going to start the players.
Yeah, you start the guys.
There's a decent chance that this is a good offensive environment, especially in the context of 2023, and you're feeling great. But from DFS, this is a tough situation to kind of figure out what you're going to do with this. And I wonder if this is a game of secondary stacks, and then that's it. I wonder if that's how we have to kind of approach this, or just put MVS in every lineup because the Chargers give up deep passes, and if Michael Gallup would just catch some of them, my Uncut Gem would have hit on Monday night. Maybe that's just what.
Yeah, I did right. I said, the thing is like, our number one exerciser in the world, MVS. Like if there was ever a game for him to catch a long touchdown, like this would be the one.
Well, what is this? What is his target rate per route?
6.6%. He's been targeted on 6.6% of his routes, the lowest rate of any player to run 100 more pass routes this season. Our number one cardio man in the NFL. He is getting that burn, baby.
It is what, like, I wish I could. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I could just tell you that is a wildly low number. Like that is a crazy low number. Like it's why are they just running them out there to run those?
Because structurally, this was their answer. Like when the Chiefs were seeing all the too high stuff, right? And they like because that's why his routes never go down, right? Like this is why he plays the most snaps, because structurally they need him to run guys off to open stuff up for Kelce, and then all their jet motion BS that they run, like, you know, it's like they don't throw to Sky Moore, but like, you know, the Tony stuff and like MVS is there to do one thing, and he's to take guys downfield.
And it's working. Good job.
But that's why though he doesn't, nothing gets pulled back for him, even though he's doing nothing, because that's what they want. That he actually is doing what they want him to do.
Yeah. Am I thinking is Robert Meacham the right guy? Am I thinking of the Saints wide receiver?
Yeah, Robert Meacham signed that big contract with the Chargers.
Yeah. I think that's the guy. I think I'm thinking of the right one.
They had a few of those guys go through there. Devery Henderson came after that, like another guy that just
Devery Henderson is actually the one I was thinking of.
Oh, okay. Yeah. He's another guy just ran down the field.
He just ran down the field. Sometimes Drew Brees would throw it to him, and, you know, he'd have a big game, and then people would spend 10% of their fab budget, and then it never happened again.
But Meacham got a big secondary contract. Like he actually was like a dude like people thought was good, and the Chargers paid him, and then he never did anything.
Well, got his money. I'm always happy to see something.
Yeah, good for you, Robert Meacham. I hope he owns like a bunch of Five Guys or something, like, or whatever. Like, I hope he just has done something cool afterwards, post NFL.
A bunch of Papa Johns, something like that. I'm happy. One more game this week to talk about that is kind of okay, and I do say kind of okay because I don't know how good the Ravens are. Like, I genuinely have no idea how good they are, looking at what they faced this year and kind of the slip-ups they've had. You know, that Colts game against Gardner Minshew was rough. But the Lions are playing the Ravens. This is going to be a good yardstick for at least the Ravens, and maybe the Lions too, if the Ravens are, you know, as good as their record indicates. One of the more interesting things in this game is the Lions defense, which I had doubts about this Lions defense entering the season. You know, you looked at the end of last year, and even when they were winning games, their defense wasn't great. Their additions that they made, I was not super impressed by, and a lot of those additions, the free agent additions, aren't even playing right now. And yet, this defense has been good. They're second, allowing just 3.3 yards per carry, seventh, allowing 6.3 yards per attempt, 10th, allowing 1.63 points per drive. They have a 39.6% pressure rate, which is sixth. They're seventh, allowing just 4.6 plays against to gain 20 yards or more. This defense has been legitimately good. However, their schedule hasn't really tested them. And so this is going to be a good opportunity to see both where the Ravens offense is and kind of where the Lions defense is as well. And I don't know kind of which end of that I'm falling on. I'm going to have to make that decision at some point, but I kind of don't know which way to go because neither team is really, I don't know what to think about really either team at this point.
Yeah, I kind of like this game from a DFS perspective for that reason, right? Like, I feel like because the peripheral metrics of both these defenses are really good because if you go back to the front of the show, there are no good offenses. And these two teams have particularly played a good run of them. The Ravens more so than the Lions, but the last time we seen the Lions face kind of a quarterback we would consider at least league average or close to league average in Geno Smith, I mean, they give up 37 points. And they've had injuries since then. Like, they're missing key pieces. I mean, since then they faced Desmond Ridder, Jordan Love, Bryce Young, and Baker Mayfield. I definitely think they're improved, but I also think if anyone low-key hasn't watched the Ravens, like Lamar Jackson is playing some of the best football of his career. I mean, he is playing some really good quarterback right now. It hasn't completely reflected in the box score because they haven't had the touchdowns. They're also another team that's had some wishy-washy like red zone success. But man, Lamar Jackson's playing really good. I encourage anyone to go back to that Browns game that he had, especially, you know, seeing what the resume we're seeing the Browns continue to stack defensively. So this will be a nice test for the Lions defense and the Ravens defense as well. I mean, we're still trying to figure out what they are. We know like Mike McDonald he's built up like kind of making the most out of like all the injuries that they've had. They did get Marlon Humphrey back. But this is a team I feel like still has some opportunity to give up some plays. And this Lions, I have more faith that Ben Johnson and this Lions offense is more real than I do this defense. So I think that there's a chance here. This game could be kind of like sneakily like good on in the context of this particular DFS slate, because it looks like we might not. Well, we know we're not getting David Montgomery, so do we get kind of like a spot where Jahmyr Gibbs can have some more usage? You know, like I said, does Lamar Jackson play well? We got Mark Andrews and Amon-Ra St. Brown players we can count on. Zay Flowers is the only Ravens wide receiver that's consistently playing snaps. So like you've got kind of a core nucleus of guys you can build around in this game if it's relatively good. And both these defenses aren't just quite as good as their peripheral metrics look.
Yeah, and I mean, also just kind of on a side there, Nelson Aguilar is running the second most routes among wide receivers. So if you are stacking this game, that's something to keep in mind. You mentioned how Lamar Jackson's been good, but the Ravens offense has kind of felt sleepwalky. And I think some of the reason for that are penalties. I think penalties are killing them. They're 25th in offensive penalty EPA. Drops are hurting them. They're 5.7% in drop rate. And I kind of think this Ravens offense, you mentioned Lamar Jackson's expected touchdowns. He's 2 behind his expected touchdowns, I believe is the number you had. And so this feels like an offense that is running on the wrong side of variance right now. And I wonder if maybe this is the game that we see it. So I think that is a.
I mean,
that Steelers game,
they could have had 30 points in that game.
And
just self-sabotage. I also think too, this is a team like, and you know, I don't want to be like this guy that says like you have to have like elite running back play, but I feel like their running back situation is actually not very good right now for the offense either. Like they're a team that needs an explosive player in the run, like in their backfield right now.
Absolutely. All right, we're running out of time quickly. Dylan Finnick did have a question. I moved Olave and James Cook for Stephon Diggs. Good trade. I love that trade. James Cook's going the wrong way in his usage, so I like that. I like that for you, Dylan. All right, let's move on real quick to Uncut Gems before we run out of time here. Rich, who do you like this week? Who is your Uncut Gem this week?
Yeah, my uncut gem this week is Jalen Hyatt. You know, he's kind of trending positively. He's run more routes in every game in the past 3 weeks, 85%. Last week, and you kind of just look at it from a matchup perspective. Like if you gotta say like whatever, man. Here, you know, we gotta what the backwards hat on for it because he said that's when everything gets serious. I mean, the Commanders are just giving up the bag to outside receivers and on these vertical targets. So if Tyrod plays, who already has more deep completions than Daniel Jones, and you just have to throw something at the flex or wide receiver 3, like we know the pedigree that the Blitnikoff Award winner has. Like I'm going with Jalen Hyatt, man.
Hoping for the best. Hoping Tyrod Taylor starts. Hoping for the best. I'm going to go with. We talked about this earlier. I'm going to go with Tyler Algier in kind of this very thin running back week. He is getting the goal to go carries. They're 9-team goal to go carries this season for the Falcons. Algier has 5 of them. He has 30 carries over the last 2 weeks. You're not worried about the matchup. This could be a game here against the Bucks that the Falcons don't have to chase as much, so they can stay more kind of running where they want to run. It's a good spot for Algier, and I wouldn't be shocked to be left with 2 touchdowns. And so he's probably going to get you 50 yards. Maybe he gets you some touchdowns and kind of swings a week for you. So Algier is my uncut gem for this week. All right. That is it for us. We really appreciate you listening. If you came and watched us live on YouTube, we appreciate that. If you didn't, remember, go to YouTube, search Warren Sharp, and subscribe to get notified when we go live at 11:30 every Thursday. If you listen to it on the podcast, we also appreciate that. So thank you very much for that. We have a bunch of stuff still coming out this week. We have Ryan McChrystal and Todd Burrows doing the DFS preview and betting preview on Thursday night. Show up in your podcast feed on Friday. Sunday, right after the games end, I'll be with Curtis and Tucker recapping the week 7 games. So make sure you check us there. Go to Sharp Football Analysis, check out our all access package, use code ANGLES, get 25% off. And I think that's it. I think that's all I got. So we're going to sign off and we'll talk to you soon.